First, I'd like to give a little background, and just thank you so much for having us here. I know your ministers have a relationship with their heritage, with the science of mind, with Ernest Holmes and that body of work, which is reflected in the relationship that Ernest Holmes had with his teachings. At the time of his passing, he was a mystic who was focused on transcending the third dimensional realm into the fourth dimensional realm. Now, what do I mean by that? All of his teachings, all of his practices, everything he focused on and had taught all those years led him to the point where he realized that the purpose of his soul evolving was to evolve to the next level of expression, which is the fourth dimensional expression. So this center is uniquely, I believe, in terms of science of mind, focused not on the literality of the message or the teachings, although that's important because the steps and stages are important. If you're a piano player, you better learn your scales. But the true music comes forth when we transcend the literality of the teachings, as he did at the time of his death. And Ernest Holmes was moving into that mystical realm where it was about the direct experience of the divine, of God. Similarly, Jane Elizabeth Hart and myself come out of a Unity background. My wife Lynn and I are both second generation Unity folk. Jane Elizabeth is first generation, but we share something in common as well, which is Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founders, did the same thing. They transcended the literality of the teachings into a realm of moving into the next level, which was the evolution of the soul, the mystical experience, the direct experience of the divine, the direct experience of God. That's what brings us together. So, I know Lisa real well from INTA. I think what we share is so much more profound than we do with many people within our own movement, because this center is based on experience, the mysticism, and ours is as well. I'm being led to share that my parents were raised in very different traditions. My dad was raised in Christian Science, my mom in basic Baptist, Methodist, Midwestern Protestantism. But when my sister was born with birth defects, my mom got an affirmation from a place called Silent Unity that my dad heard about. You are God's whole and perfect child, aglow with God's light, life, and wisdom. She worked with this. My sister was never supposed to walk, but after a year of being in a full body cast, which was at best supposed to allow her to hobble with a brace, she had a complete and total healing, and the doctor said that never happened, was never in the cards. These teachings are about an experience. Jane Elizabeth Hart is my spiritual teacher, my meditation teacher. To give you a little background of the particulars of each of us, I've been a Unity minister for 33 years. Jane Elizabeth truly, when she came into my life, it was through her relationship with my wife Lynn. She was her meditation teacher for the last 20 years, mine for about 15 years. What her literal physical background is she was an executive at Unity headquarters. She's been the lead teacher of our mother church at Unity Village, as well as 2 of the 3 largest Unity churches, many things like that. But in the year 2000, she was guided to retire, to leave her position at Unity headquarters, and to start the Center for Enlightenment, which is primarily an online ministry which supports souls in the evolution of their expression into the fourth dimensional consciousness. And she doesn't mince words. It's pure mysticism. Frankly, in New Thought, there are very few venues that are open enough to teach this, which is truly home base for Ernest Holmes and Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. But you are those mystics who are ready to take that next step, honoring the traditions, not rejecting any of them, but transcending them even as our founders, moving into that direct experience which they always taught about. Jane Elizabeth Hart has brought into my life more profound spiritual experiences than anyone else I've met, and this really, I'm here to support her in her teaching. Her body of work truly is born in her personal experience. And she's going to share how over the years of her study, which now you're approaching 55 years of serious, deep spiritual study, she has, out of necessity, developed and intuitively received and is now transmitting the spiritual power tools, which are the methods of support for the souls, first of all, for her own soul to get through the very tough situations in her life, which she'll share some with you, and then to share them with other people. And she has been a resource in my life and the lives of hundreds of people, thousands probably. The fact that Lisa was willing to open this up and share her with you is a true once-in-a-lifetime gift. By the end of this time, I think you will intuit that this is a rare opportunity. You have been given a chance tonight to receive an energy, a life, a support, and a body of teachings that will move you forward in your evolution in a way that perhaps you've not experienced before. And so I believe I've given the best introduction I know how, so I'd like you to share with me the welcome for Jane Elizabeth Hart.
I feel so very honored to stand before you. I feel like the first time in many, many years, and I mean this from the depth of my soul, that I have souls that are hungry for what I was hungry for as I was hungry for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are the ones that I want to serve, I want to love, I want to give every inch of myself to, because you are the ones that are going to use what I'm teaching and working with you tonight to move your consciousness to a new state of being. Consciousness is about moving from one dimension to another dimension to another dimension to another one. And Greg talked about the fourth dimension. I am really going to talk about the fourth dimension tonight even more than I've ever done before, because I think you're ready to hear some of the things that I have experienced that have brought me to where I am today, and how to move your consciousness the quickest way possible and master and become the God, the I am presence that you are. You have to have all those veils lifted to recognize that you are God in essence and God in beingness. God becomes man for man to become God. You see, we are God. We just don't recognize it. We're stuck in the third dimension. What is the third dimension? The third dimension lives in the opposites. We all know that the third dimension has its opposites. One moment we're happy, one moment we're sad. Then how do we get out of this terrible thing that's going from one side to the other? You know, you experience one moment you're truly excited about life, and the next moment somebody calls you and you say, oh my God, oh, ain't it awful. Well, you guys are beyond all that, thank God, because now we're going to move from that third dimension, and it's the opposites. We live in the opposites because we live in the third dimension. We've lived in the opposite for many, many lifetimes. We've been a lot of little tiny eyes. When I started to recognize the fact that I had a past life and many past lives, I started to understand that I had a lot of little eyes with little dots. Hundreds of little eyes with little dots. And every time I had a little eye with a little dot, I thought that was all there was. That I enjoyed it, I learned from it, I did a lot of wonderful things, I did a lot of stupid things. But I was still a little eye. And that little eye follows us, and then we become another little eye. And then we become another little eye. And then we become another little eye. And each time we're a little eye, we have a limited consciousness. We only have 1/10 of us alive. The 9/10 of us is in our subconscious. Everything was stored and is stored in your subconscious. So it's very important to recognize what is working you. What is working in your subconscious? And when I began my journey in 1967, I had a great desire in my heart to know God. I wanted to know God. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I wanted to know God. And I traveled around and tried to find out what that meant. And what I found out was the only way I'm going to find out anything is if I start meditating. If I want to know God, I better be quiet enough to listen to Him. And man, was that a job. To quiet my mind, and I found out how boring I was. I listened to my mind and listened to it till I thought I would scream. And many times I did. Because my mind went from one thing to the other while I was trying to meditate and be still and know God. And finally, one day, I got one tiny little inch of quiet. Tiny inch of quietness. And when I got this little inch of quietness, I felt, oh, thank you, God. Oh, quiet, finally. I continued meditating. That fueled my fire. That fueled me to move on. It gave me the boost I needed. And then I went to a seminar where I was asked to be a guest speaker on healing. I knew nothing about healing, but my minister said, read a book, give a book report. We need someone from our Methodist church to do that. Oh, okay. So I got a book. I read it. Agnes Sanford's book on healing. And I gave a wonderful little book report. Didn't know what I was talking about, but I gave it to you. Greg, I'll let you talk later, but right now I'm good and hot.
That's all right. I'm listening.
So I got the book, and I want to share this with you all. In the process of getting that book and doing the talk, there was a young lady that was from the Unity Church, and she said to me, she has answered all the questions. Everything I wanted to say, she's saying. So she said, I will take questions. And I loved her answers. And I thought, oh my gosh, this girl's got something going on. So I said to her, can I have your name and address? I'd really like to get to know you. And she said, okay. And so she gave me her address and her name and telephone number, and I prayed over it. God, help me. Is this somebody I should call? I want to know you, God. I don't know. I don't want to do anything I shouldn't do. I was in that state of beingness. I want to follow my inner guidance. And so I picked up the phone and called her. And she said to me, I want to ask you a very, very personal question. I said, what is she going to ask me? So personal. She said, Whisper, do you meditate? I said, yes, I meditate. She said, so do I, but nobody around here meditates. And she said, I want to get to know God. And I said, oh my God, so do I. So do I. We began meditating together. We became spiritual friends. And we started meditating every day at the same time in separate homes. We lived about 5 miles from each other. We both had young children, and when the children would go to sleep, we would meditate. What was beginning to happen was I would get a message. Now, I never got messages before, and so I was kind of shocked about this. So I would call her after a meditation, and I said, I got a message about the subconscious. And she said, I got a message about the subconscious too. What was your message? And I said, my message was, I'm 1/10 conscious and 9/10 subconscious. She said, I did too. Oh my God. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. And I said, I don't either, but this is the message I got. So we went to our ministers and we started talking to people. Nobody could give us an answer. No one told us what this meant. except it's a consciousness, it's a this. No, I said, it's got to be more. If I got this in meditation, it has real meaning to my spiritual growth, and I needed to understand what that meant. And it was a vision then. Sherry, my friend's name is Sherry, and I'll use that name a lot because it's a journey of spiritual awakening. She and I decided we would continue our meditation and continue working and trying to understand the conscious and the subconscious. And what we started to learn, and I'm going to talk to you about it now because it's the groundwork for all the work that you're doing. You are 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious. Everything I found out was in my subconscious. Every lifetime I lived. You all know this. You've been taught this. I can feel that. And you know that everything is in your subconscious. And all your lifetimes are built in your subconscious. And everybody you're with has been with you before. And everybody, your children, your family, your people you work with, even the people you go to church with, the people, particularly your children and your husbands, or those relationships that are important to you. You've been here before with them to work out something, and if it gets done, then it goes away, and you pick up somebody else. And it gets done, and it gets completed, but that is the karmic law. So we began to understand that there was all this stuff down below, but we didn't know what to do with it. And we didn't even understand why we got it. So we continued meditating. One day, I was meditating in the morning, and I was to meet with my friend Sherry in the afternoon. She called me up on the phone, and she said to me, I forgot. I got a little ahead of myself here. One of the days that we meditated together, what happened was we got in this great white light, and it kind of came into the room, and it just blinded us. And we thought, we were shocked. We said, what are we going to do with this? Oh my God, what's happening to us? And I got a message. And Sherry said, I got a message. I said, don't tell me what your message is. Write it on a piece of paper. So she wrote her message down on the piece of paper. I wrote my message down on the piece of paper. And like two little girls, we said, 1, 2, 3, here's my message. It was the same message. It was the veil will be lifted. The veil would be lifted. What on earth is the veil? And how on earth is it going to get lifted? How is that important to knowing God? What is that all about? So the next thing, we went to all the different churches and started asking anybody that would listen to us, tell us what the veil is. I don't know. I don't know. I'll go to the Bible. No, this is important. I need to understand this. Now, we continue meditating. And about 2 weeks later, Sherry called me up in her meditation in the morning. She said, I saw you in my meditation, and all I could do is cry. I can't stop crying because I keep saying, thank you, Michael, for coming home. Thank you, Michael, for coming home. She said, it feels so funny. I think it's you. And okay. She said, do you believe in reincarnation? I said, I don't even know what it is. What do you mean? She said, my parents talked to me a little bit about it when I was a kid, but I've not heard too much about it. She said, do you think we had a past life? Oh gosh, I don't know. But I'm coming over this afternoon, and we'll find out what it's all about. So I came over, and on the way to her house, I got a message. And the message was, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked at what's going to happen. Oh my God, what is going to, that scared me. Because then again, you want an understanding of those things. Walked up to the door, knocked on the door, and she said to me, Michael, I'm so glad to see you. And she put her arms around me and started crying. And she pulled away and she said, oh my God, I don't know what's wrong with me. This is craziness. And I said, yes, maybe we should just sit down and meditate. We sat down and tried to calm ourselves down, and we tried to meditate. And she said, then, I got to talk to you. I said, okay, what is it that you want to talk about? Why did you leave me? What do you mean, why did I leave you? You left me and promised to come back, Michael, and you never did. And I hate you. I waited for you for years, and you never came back for me. And I can't understand it, she said to me. Okay, Sherry, that's okay. Well, could you tell me when this was? She said, you know where it was. You were in the Crusades. I was a man. Okay. And this is all shocking to me, but for some reason I had great poise. Thank God the Spirit was on me, or whatever you want to call it. But I had poise, and I said, okay. So then she said to me, I have to forgive you for leaving me. I know I have to forgive you, and I don't know how to even begin to do that. But she said, you know, it says in the Bible, you wash the feet. And that's a very wonderful way of forgiving. And Jesus said it somewhere, I don't even know where that was, but it doesn't matter. I said, go ahead. It was the most humbling experience I ever had. For her to wash my feet, and for her to say, I love you, Michael, and I've forgiven you. And then she said to me, will you call my husband and tell him I've lost my mind? I said, I will not. I don't think you lost your mind, Sherry. I don't think so. I don't know who Michael is. I don't even know who he is or why he is. But somehow, in my heart of hearts, when you looked at me and said you loved me and forgave me, something broke away. Something broke away. And whatever that breaking away was, I thank you for it. We went ahead and had a cup of tea, and that was that. 2 days later, I'm meditating, and I'm sitting in my meditation chair, and I get a vision of this little girl. She's a little girl with long blonde curls, and she's standing in front of a gate. And this girl is knocking on the gate saying, Mother, where are you? Where did you go, Mother? Why did you leave me here? I don't want to be here. And I thought, what is this? And I thought, I know I'm that little girl. I know I'm that little girl. And I thought, I'm going to call Sherry. So I called, Sherry, I think I had what you were calling a past life memory. I think I just had one. So I said, I'm coming over. I got to talk to you about this because I'm freaked out. So I went over to her house. When I got there, she was answered the door, and I walked in and I said, Mother, why did you leave me in that convent? And she said, what? I said, Mother, you left me in the convent and you told me you were coming back for me. You didn't do it. And I'm so mad at you. I waited and waited and waited for you and you never came. Every day I walked to that gate and looked for you and you didn't come back to me. Why did you leave me there? And she's like, I don't remember this. Okay, all right. I said, I have to wash your feet. I knew that from my heart. I needed to forgive her. That little girl needed to forgive her mother. And so I washed her feet. And I kept saying, Mother, I forgive you. I forgive you, Mother. It's okay, Mother. I love you, Mother. And she started crying. And she said, oh, a great peace became between the two of us. And we hugged. We said, oh my God, do you suppose that the training that you and I have gotten, that the iceberg, 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious, that the veil was lifted between our conscious and our subconscious mind. And truly, it truly was. And my journey began from that moment on. I realized that I had many lifetimes, and many lifetimes with my friend Sherry. And then I realized the children in my life were my two oldest daughters, were my mother and father in another lifetime. And we were here to work things out. Then I realized the man that I had married was in the Crusades with me. When I was Michael, he was my wife, and I left him too. And so there we are. And now he's asking for a divorce, and he wants to leave me. And all I could think of is, thank you, God. We have worked through our karma. It's time for us to separate. We are doing it in love, and we do it with compassion for each other, understanding there is a higher purpose to what we're doing than just to stay married, be married, and continue a piece of karma that has no value any longer. All those things were part of the venture that the 1/10 consciousness, 9/10 sub, that started in 1967. And since then, I've had I don't even know how to talk about it. I've had one revelation and understanding after another revelation and understanding. I became more and more aware of the many things that I had to detach from, and that the third dimension was my ground, my world that I created to do my karma in. Do you hear what I'm saying? I created the situations. I was in the play. I like to talk about my play. I was in a play. Michael was in a play in the Crusades where it was happening, and then Michael died. He passed away, and he came in as a woman, and then the woman passed away, and then another man came in, and then these are my different consciousnesses. But I had to go back for 13 lives, and you don't have to go back all the way. You need to find the things that are tripping you up this lifetime. The decisions, some of the decisions I made way back 7,000 years ago were still in my subconscious, creating problems in my current life. And I had to get down to the bottom of them. And that was the beginning of really getting down into the subconscious. And I found out my subconscious ran my conscious mind. Ran it. It looked at people, not from the 1/10 conscious, but from the subconscious. I like you. I don't like you. Oh, you're the perfect person for me. Oh no, I don't want you in my life. That was all stuff that was down here with people that I did not approve of, or I judged them, or something. And I began to realize that the people in my life that I didn't like were my best, the very, very best people to help me to move out of my subconscious crap. Because if I didn't take care of those things, that I couldn't become God conscious. My goal now was to become God conscious. I began to understand that there was more to me than this lifetime that I was living, and that I had to do my work to advance my consciousness, advance it, and make it the full 100% conscious. That is our work. That is your work. That is your work to freedom. You will get free when you have the courage to chip away at this iceberg and let those pieces come up to conscious mind, and then deal with them with love and respect instead of kicking them down. I don't want to look at that. boom, guess what? It just gets buried to come up again and again and again. How are we going to go into God consciousness if we carry all the garbage with us? No way. It does not happen. I thought that being in God would be a piece of cake. If I did my meditation, God would just take me and wake me up and I would know God. No way. That was not the reason for our beingness in the first place. The beingness was become consciously aware that we are God. Conscious, alive, and well. Not in a limited consciousness. Because God consciousness is far, I want to say cosmic. I loved it, something that you talked about, cosmic consciousness. Thank you, God. I'm trying to lift a lot of people just to know that there is another consciousness. And you're talking about cosmic consciousness? Oh, do I love you guys. Oh, yes, there is a cosmic consciousness. And that is part of your beingness. And you can tap into that cosmic consciousness and it can give you what you need to know. You see, we are not limited to this 1/10 consciousness that we live in. We melt the iceberg. The iceberg becomes melted. We become more alive, more aware, more filled with the spirit of who we really are. Because when you get it all done, you are God, expressing as God. Man, God, God, man. First man has to become God, and then God becomes man to do something for his humanity, to serve, to grow, to help them to understand, to wake them up to who they really are. Otherwise, they stay in this limited state of beingness. Limited state. They're only 1/10 conscious, and they're looking through their whole life through this little peephole, this tiny little peephole, and they're judging everybody according to this little peephole. My God, if I'm looking at you in this little peephole, I'm only seeing about 4 people, and this whole room is filled, you see? And I need to open myself up so I see the whole beingness of all that you are, because you are me. That is what I discovered. There is no separation. In another dimension, on the higher levels of dimension, we are totally one. The little squirrel is a 2-dimensional consciousness, but it will become a human consciousness at one point. And we probably all were little squirrels, or birds, or bees, or whatever. But we've advanced in consciousness to become more conscious of who we really are in God. Then we become human beings. And we live many, many, many lifetimes as human beings. Many, many. And we grow, we change, we start to express ourselves in God as best we can. And we learn, and we become more conscious. We begin to develop our intuition. We begin to take responsibility for ourselves. And then there comes a point in our evolution where we're ready to move out of the 3rd dimension into the 4th dimension. And when we're ready to do that, that means we're out of the opposites. That means we may live in this world, but we are not of it. We are not in the midst of the opposites. The drama of life. Drama will take you over and wash you away, and you won't get out of the opposites. And so many of the people around you, at home and so forth, enjoy being in the drama of life and not in their higher self, because they don't know any different. They don't know. God is existing in them as much as God is existing in every bee, every piece of sand, everything. I found that God is, but I also found I am. I am the visible God presence. And when you are the God presence in the world, you know that everyone is you. Everyone is you. And there's no separation. And the joy of having all these wonderful friends that you are. I am never lonely because I'm always in love. You're always in love. You don't need someone to love you because you're loving them, they're loving you. You're experiencing the whole. This is just a tiny bit of God consciousness. I could go on and on. What is it like to be in God consciousness? What is it? Oh, I think you want to know. I'm going to tell you. What is it like to be in God consciousness? Well, I'm sorry, Greg, I'm really going off on you.
That's all right, we're paying you by the word tonight, so it's good.
For some reason, I'm taking over.
She's my teacher. You got to understand this, so I'm here to take notes and support.
Yep.
Keep it rolling.
Okay, I'm going to keep on going. You know there is a fourth dimension. You know that. You talk about it. I heard it in your service. I understand that you understand that you're God consciousness. Becoming fully aware of your individual expression of God in you. You already have that in your consciousness. So now where do you go with that? That's the next point. Where do you go with that understanding? You go with the understanding that you have responsibility now. You have a huge responsibility to free yourself. And that's where that, once you understand those things, then you understand there's more to you than this little life that you're living. I call this body my car. It just drives me around. It gets me walking across the stage. It gets me up in the morning. I have to have a car. I couldn't come and see you. Who would be speaking? Just a head with a light or something? I don't know what we would speak to. But here I am. I'm in my car, and I call it my body. And this body is called Jane Elizabeth. And I could be called peanut butter for that matter. It wouldn't matter at all, because God is. And if God's dwelling in me and dwelling in you, there is no separation here. There is no separation. And it's a thin wall, thin veil. Believe me, let me tell you, it's a thin veil that you have to walk through, but it takes huge responsibility. You have to take the responsibility. So when I began to understand these things, that I had to take responsibility for my soul, not get rid of the personality. I wanted my soul to overcome my personality, because I knew I had been many personalities in other lifetimes, many very interesting personalities. Some I liked and some I didn't like, but I was a very interesting personality. They all left, but then I'm here in this personality. This has got to go while I'm alive. Do you hear me? When I'm alive, I can't go off and pass over. I'll just come in another body and learn these things. I wanted to learn them now. This was the most important thing for me, to learn it now. And I didn't want to come back in another lifetime to learn it. I said, God, do whatever I need to do. I will not give up on this project. I don't care what you do or what you send me. I am going to overcome whatever is in my subconscious, because that's where it's at. It's the subconscious you have to deal with, because there's little pieces of ice. And in my spiritual power tool book, all this stuff is in there. So, read it. I'm just going to talk to you, because, you'll read it, and after hearing what I have to say, you'll know how I'm using those tools and how they came up to help me. But as we know, that everything is here. And you have to find out what's in there, at least if you don't know all of your lives or some of your lives, or you never go down to the deepest end of yourself. Whatever progress you make this lifetime is counted like you wouldn't believe towards your next possibility. Towards your next possibility of reincarnating in a much better, higher state of being. The whole plan is to waken up everyone. and help them to understand what they're doing right now is going to create their next piece of karma, their future in another lifetime. What you're doing right now, where you are this lifetime, has been created from another lifetime. I was shocked when I found that out. Wow, I was paying debts to a lot of people from other lifetimes. 13 other different characters that I owed things to. That doesn't mean bad things. It means loving things, supporting them, helping them. Sometimes I had to forgive them, but guess who I had to forgive the most? The greatest relationship you can have is with yourself. That's who you go to bed with. That's who you wake up with. That's who is always with you. You have to be your best friend on this spiritual journey. It's demanding you to be your best friend. Because when that things get tough that you have to look at and you have to deal with in your life, you have to have the foundation of understanding that you need to look at things, forgive yourself, and move on. Because we can get all caught up in a past life and what we did and didn't do if we find out we had one. But pretend that everybody in your life you need to forgive. That's what I did when I didn't know who they were anyway. I said, oh God, I understand. If I can't do anything else and I don't know who they are, I am forgiving them. I am going to take them and forgive them. I am going to take myself all up and forgive myself. And that's where the 7 steps for successful life transition comes in. Okay, Miss Tammy, let us have that. There it is. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how I got this, because I want to talk to you about what you need to do with it. There's 7 steps here. And each step has a job to do. And when I got in my sticky situations, and I sure did, because when I was ready to move forward on my journey, I needed to have a tool to do forgiveness work, or release work. And these 7 steps were my greatest friends, because if I didn't know what to do with that person in my life that I knew that I needed to forgive, I started out by taking them up the 7 steps. And I did it this way. This is just one way these steps work. They work 1,000 ways, but this is where I began. I started working with this by saying, well, sometimes I was so angry I couldn't say thank you, God. Okay? I took every step I needed to take with him. Right now I'm pissed as hell. So I'm going to go right here. Disappointments and difficulties. And I'm going to write down everything I'm thinking, disappointments and difficulties. And I'm going to go and really journal and do whatever I need to do, scream, yell, and holler, but get it done. Then, now, I have a chance to erase one of these karmic pieces in my subconscious, because it's obvious if I don't know who they are and where they were, but they sure are pissing me off now. And I know they're keeping me from God consciousness. And when I knew that they were keeping me, or were they keeping me? Or was I keeping myself by holding that grudge from God consciousness? There's nothing I wanted more than to know God. To know God. How does God think? What does God do? How does the karmic law work? How does God balance the universe? I wanted all those answers. So these 7 steps began my process to understand what and how to forgive. Because I've had to use them in so many ways. I had to take them up. First step is thank you, God. Thank you, God. Whatever it is, thank you, God. The second step is Good times. Yeah, can you see that? I was wondering if these are on. Okay. The good times. The good times that you have with your person you're with or whatever. And then your hopes and dreams for them. Or your hopes and dreams for yourself. While I'm saying this, I'm going to tell you right now, you can use it for yourself, which is the best thing I ever found out. Because you change consciousnesses all the time. And you have to have a process to change your consciousness. I've had to give myself up probably 3 times a year, take myself up, because I always wanted to keep my consciousness free and clear. I didn't want to take anything with me. I wanted to get rid of things so that I could walk freely into God consciousness. That was my goal. That is your goal. I know it. To look in this room and see the light. You all have that light about you. That light that says, I want to go. I want to know. I was there with you. I know what it feels like to want to know. And nothing is going to stop me now. Because I knew that I had the power, because I was taking responsibility. So taking them up the 7 steps and helping them to know helping me to release and let go, then I could release and let go of myself in the process of letting go something else. So then, of course, the disappointments and difficulties. And then, of course, the forgiveness piece. It's all in my book. But this helped me over and over. Then there's the release. And I give it to you, God. I want to surrender it. I surrender this person, me, Jane. I surrender her to you, God. You help her to take her next spiritual step. I don't want to take any garbage with me. Help me, help me, help me. And one of the most important things that I learned taking these spiritual steps is one very important thing. I had a daughter that was 18 years old, and she went missing. And I did not know where she was. And we called the police. We asked the police, please, our daughter is missing. And the police said, 24 hours, please, before we even start to look. She may have gone to a girlfriend's house. And no word from Sherry Ann. She didn't call us, she didn't do anything. And I was meditating. And I said, oh God, please help me. What is going on? And I heard a voice. And that voice said, Mommy, I'm okay. I'm on the other side. And I thought, oh my God, she's gone. Don't worry, Mommy. I'm okay. And I knew what I heard. I knew it was her voice. And I knew that she had passed on. But there was nobody. In fact, there wasn't anybody for 8 months. And finally, they found this body in the woods that had been shot 6 times. And all they had left was the clothes. And I knew they were Sherry Ann's clothes. And so I went into meditation and said, they can't, we identified the clothes, but they need dental records. They need something. And the dentist that we had all the records with had just died. So who's got the records? And I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? And it was, take the person that killed her up the 7 steps. And I thought, oh, my goodness. How in God's name am I going to do that? And I had to go to the 4th step immediately. My disappointments and my difficulties and the horror of the whole thing. And I knew we found her body, but we had to get the demo. And I said, okay, God, I will take her up the 7 steps, him up the 7 steps. And I will, whoever did this, I have to forgive him. I will forgive him. I don't know how to. And I worked and journaled on this for 4 days. Day in, day out. And at the end of 4 days, I knew I completed my goal. It was done. 2 hours later, we found the dental records, and we were able to at least bury her. And when I went to the funeral, I was never loved so much from the people that came, and I could receive their love instead of being bitter or upset or angry or, oh, isn't this terrible? And they said, oh, Jane, this is so terrible. And I said, I know, but thank you, oh, thank you for your love. Thank you for coming and loving me and for loving her. And it was a celebration of her life. I celebrated her life at that funeral. Now, probably only metaphysical people would understand that. But I celebrated her life. And then, after everything was done, about 2 weeks after that, I was in meditation, and the message came. You finally forgave Michael, Jane. That man represents Michael, because you killed children in the Crusades. And your heart was heavy with guilt. And you could never forgive yourself for that. And I know that was difficult for you, but in forgiving him, you forgave yourself, and you've set yourself free from something really that was hanging your soul up life after life after life. You couldn't get rid of that horror. And so I realized that sometimes when you do your forgiveness work, you're really forgiving yourself. And that was the greatest lesson that I had ever learned, and probably ever will learn. Because things are connected with other things. So when you're doing one thing, know that it has many levels. It does. It has many levels of erasing many, many things in that subconscious that needs to be erased. So the 7 steps are going to be your very best friend through this whole process. Do you want us to put up just the 7 steps and not all the printing? Oh, thank you very much, Danny. But see, once I completed that and walked up to the great light of God, that represents the great light of God, I completed it. But I also erased some of my karmic records. So that is one of the most important things that I learned through this process. And now, Greg.
Well, I got something to say.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and it's that she received the 7 steps not because of that incident, but when her mother died and she couldn't find any joy in life and was in such a deep state of grief and didn't know what to do. So the 7 steps came to her for another purpose. You said things are connected with things. You think you're working on one thing and then it works in another level. In this case, the veil was lifted for her to complete her grieving process with her mother. And then when she went through her divorce and there were 4 children and she had to take care of them, she found that it helped with that. And then when her daughter was killed, she found that she could do this work with that. And then she also shared something else. 3 times a year, she takes herself up the 7 steps. I take my old self up the 7 steps regularly. Lynn and I take each other up the 7 steps over and over and over again because we outgrow our old consciousness and we hold each other in bondage to the old consciousness where we want the person to stay so we can feel safe. And especially children. You know, my little booty boo, my little 3-year-old daughter is now 16. And at some point, over and over again, I've had to say, I'm treating her like, or my son, who's now 11, like they're younger. And you can do that. Or you move from a vehicle, she said her body's a car. Your car represents your consciousness. Your physical car does. What happens when you get rid of your car? When Lynn bought her very first car, she was an independent person. She felt so proud of herself. And then she got another car, and she was very strangely possessive and was having these strange feelings about this new car. And she realized she had to take the first car up the 7 steps. And when she did that, then she was able to enjoy the second car and not feel protective of it. we were trying to sell a condo. We had 48 hours moving from Florida to New Mexico, and if we didn't, we were going to lose in 6 figures. And we didn't have a single, the real estate market was terrible. And you've experienced that kind of thing. Not a single person came to look at our condo. We had 48 hours where we were going to take this huge loss that was really going to be devastating to us. And Lynn said, oh, we haven't taken our condo up the 7 steps. We're releasing it. So we took those questions that you have there and applied it to the condo. 1 phone call, 1 showing, 1 buyer is all you need. And we sold it within the 48 hours. That's not about condos, but it's to show that this idea that came in through the intuition of Jean Elizabeth Hart has been used by so many people for so many different things. And she was talking about God consciousness. You want to move into God consciousness, you got to let go of something. Because you are already God consciousness. We are already God consciousness. The only thing that keeps us from experiencing it is what? The thing we haven't let go of. The things we haven't let go of, the 9/10 beneath the level of the surface of consciousness. And the veil must be lifted in order to let go of those old beliefs, in order to free up the experience. And the whole ocean is the God consciousness. To melt those chunks. And what do we have to do? The 7-step method is the most elegant, the most convenient and easiest. It's work, but it is most direct. That's the best way of putting it. Method I've ever come across to do this kind of work. Whether it is past life work, whether it is this life work, whether it is forgiveness, releasing old consciousness, grieving, anything. And she wrote an article for Unity Magazine back in the 1990s about it, and they focused only on grief, but that's just one little aspect of it. It's a simple method, but it is a tool, and it is the tool of tools. You know, there are many tools in this book. There's meditation, there's journaling, there's a lot of different things, but this one is the one that moves us the fastest. We have to be willing to let go of that old consciousness. And as you said, the veil must be lifted. The veil, not just between your conscious and subconscious mind, but all of humanity's. That's why she's here today, bringing this message, because you are ready to drop the veil. Humanity is ready to drop the veil. People are remembering their past lives. It's on Oprah. You know, it's everywhere. It's showing up. And people are starting to awaken to this deeper, more profound truth of being. And these tools, we can use them. It's all fine to say, oh, you should forgive. It will make you happier. You won't get cancer. You should forgive. I mean, I got told that over and over again. But I had a hard time. Like Kurt Vonnegut said, I forgave my father so many times. Next time I'm getting a receipt. we try and we try and we try. But this really doesn't work. And it may take more than one pass. She said she worked on it for 4 days, but she had a big chunk to work on. We may deal with the layers of the onions, but as you once said, the onion has layers, but it also makes you cry. But when you're done, you're done. And doing this work, taking not just your old job, your situation in life, the thing that most annoys you, your understanding of God. Take God up the 7 steps. You know, that angry something in the sky that you were taught about. Just using these things. And you know, one of the things, a lot of people don't even want to start the 7 steps. They say, oh, it's too much work. I don't like journaling. I say, set an egg timer for 30 minutes and say, I won't journal my 7 steps for 1 minute longer than 30 minutes. And that's all I will do. And then it's finite. And then I race like heck and I go through the 7 steps. But you can do that and then use the meditation of taking whatever it is up the 7 steps, and you will move consciousness at a level you've never experienced before. And it's powerful. It's powerful.
The other tool that I want to suggest, and I think we gave you a copy of it, was the spiritual thermometer. Because while I was on my little journey, I found out that I had to measure myself. Where am I coming from? And as I would think to myself, am I coming from my higher self? Am I coming from my lower self? Because I began to understand that there was other parts of me that would drop me down, and And I could not make any wise decisions when I was lower than a 5. I didn't make any decisions once I realized that if I was below a 5. If I was below a 5, I had to meditate and journal and do whatever I could to get myself up to a higher level so that I could make a wise decision. Because you are spiritually working on freeing your soul. You are participating in the evolution of your soul. You are the master, and you are the one that's responsible. No one else is going to do it for you. I prayed for somebody to come in and do it for me, and it didn't work, thank God. I remember my teachers telling me, Jane, you're giving away a fingernail for the universe. What are you hanging on for? And I thought, oh my God, a fingernail to know the secrets of the universe. I had to give up my limited self, that part of me that thought it knew it all or that I had arrived. And every time I took a spiritual step, I had to take another one. So I began to learn that it wasn't done in one swoop go. I had over and over. And even walking into God consciousness, I'm going to tell you, that also has many levels to it. Many levels. And I was saying, what do you do when you're in God consciousness? First of all, you start to feel spread out. You are so large that then you are largely out there, and then you have to own your body. You have to then come into your body, and then you have to live in your body in the third dimension. And I want to tell you, it took 3 years for me to be able to be out of my body and live in a body at the same time. Now, I know that might sound crazy, but that is what eventually happens. You become the whole, but you also are in the individual in the whole. And you live from an expanded consciousness that sees and knows everything that it needs to know, and can do whatever it needs to do when it's time to do it. I knew when I walked in here and felt the energy that things were going to change. That I wasn't going to give my usual nicey talk. This is why you need to be a spiritual student. I'm saying this is what you need to be God. Because you can take it. You can take it. You want to give up your humanhood. You want to move out of humanhood to be Godhood. Then you become human in a different way. I am not subject to karma. You're not subject to the opposites. There is no thing in this other consciousness in the opposites. There isn't. There's great freedom, but there's also great responsibility. Because the responsibility is to help others to awaken to their highest self. Even if they awaken a little bit, that's a lot. That means a lot to the universe. It means a lot if you have a greater awareness. If you can be 2/10 conscious or 3/10 consciousness, and oh man, if you can be 100% conscious, that is the goal. God is in you, and you have to take those veils down, peel down the onion, do whatever you have to, scream, cry, and I certainly did a lot of that, to move into something so vast. But then you have to know and learn how to work in the vastness of God. That's another whole school. And hopefully, I'm doing a good job. If I don't fall off this stage, I'm doing a good job. But it's a goal. It's a goal. But it's who you are. This is who you are. You are God. You see, I can look into your eyes and you are God. And as I look into your eyes, I know the truth of you. You are God. Even the furthest, all the way, you're God. You are God. I recognize it, I see it, and I see that you're ready to do your work, to find that you are God. I am the I am I'm looking for. I am it. But I have to peel it down. I have to get rid of my little I, my little personality self that runs the show, and move out of that to become more consciously aware of the vastness of the universe. Oh, you'll never be bored. You never will be bored. It will be a cosmic dance. It is a cosmic dance. And I loved it when you talked about cosmic dances. That's what we are. Now, do you have anything more to add, my darling?
How could I? When Lynn, my wife, called me, and we were just first together, and she said, there's this lady in my class. She was teaching at Unity headquarters, and there's a woman in my class, and she says, she came up to me, and she said, I'm going to take you under my wing. Let's go out to lunch. Should I? Do you think that's weird? I said, yes and yes. But she did, and she took a flyer, and she went out with Jane Elizabeth Hart and started to study. And I thought Jane Elizabeth was a very, very nice, sweet lady. And I was studying. I had a mentor, and she passed on. A lot of good things happened. But when I finally got a glimpse of what was going on, Jane Elizabeth knew it was time, and we were on that gates. Have you ever? I know we're talking to Science of Mind folks. But have anybody here ever been to Unity Village? Raise your hand. Okay, well, there's gates there, and Jane Elizabeth said, "Pull over." I pulled over, and she looked right through me, and she said, "Greg, what do you want?" And I said, "What do you mean? What do I want?" "What do you want?" I said, "You mean out of life?" "Greg, what do you want?" Well, I guess I would like to serve God. I'd been a minister for 18 years at that point. Don't you think you ought to get to know God first? I've been teaching this stuff for 18 years. What was she talking about? She was talking about moving from a certain level of understanding, which was perfectly adequate and acceptable, to another level of experiencing. Moving from the theoretical and the nice stuff to moving to having an experience of God and living from that experience. And she took me under her wing at that point. And I realized that it wasn't about serving God, it was about knowing God. And then out of that knowing and that loving relationship, then moving into service. And thank you.
And being God.
And being God.
Knowing God and coming to that point of your understanding, I am. And that's the hard part, but once it comes, and I would like to say to all of you, your prayer needs to be, I want a God experience. Wherever you are, whatever little experiences or big experiences, keep asking for them. That's where your revelations come. That's where your understanding comes. I found that out, and I started being very bossy to God, or my teacher out of body. I said, I want more God experiences. That's the only way I'm going to know God is to experience God. I can't teach you about God. I can give you some ideas of how to help you to get there, but I can't be your experience. You have to experience for yourself. So you own it. You own your experience. It becomes part of the very essence of you. There is no separation. And you become that which you are seeking. Pure beingness. It's a vibration, it's an energy, it's a consciousness, it's a wisdom, it's love. It's all those things wrapped into one and more. But you're going to find out what the more is as you move into more of your own true identity in God. In God. Teach me, God, teach me. And another tool I want to leave you with that's so important was being able to observe myself. I said, how do I understand, I had to start to bifurcate myself. That was one of the words. You have to bifurcate. And I thought, oh my God, I went to the dictionary and had to look it up. Well, it means, what does it mean, Greg?
It means to split yourself up in two and have one part of yourself look at yourself and be the observer of self, which of course all the mystics have said is a necessary part in the spiritual development. But how do you do that? Well, you do it, but one of the ways I learned how was to just say, oh, Greg's really scared right now. Oh, he's really angry. Oh, he thinks he's a real big deal right now. Oh, he's elevating himself. Oh, he thinks he's below everyone else. And then I finally got to the point where I wasn't calling it Greg or he, I was calling it it. It was that ego I was looking at, it's feeling scared now. Objectifying so that it isn't threatening to you anymore. So that you can deal with it and start to have dominion over self. To have dominion over self.
This is what it is, having dominion over the limited self. The limited self. You must have dominion over it. And you are the ones that are in charge of it. No one's going to do it. So bifurcate yourself. I want to be the observer of self. Because you have to be the observer of self to understand what you need to change. Because if you don't observe your behavior, you're not going to be able to change it. And yet there are those people that will help you immensely in changing things. So those are the people that push your buttons. They are the most wonderful people in the world. Send them to me, God, because then I could find out where I was. If that pushed my button, I had to go, and I saw that. My observer self saw, oh wow, every time I'm with her or him or it, I just really get annoyed. What am I annoyed about? Journal, journal, journal. Oh, observe that about myself. I want to be with that person and not judge that person. Oh my God, I judge everybody. Oh my God, heavens only knows I judge everyone. And I got so sick of my little judgmental person, I just screamed because I couldn't stand what I was doing. And I said, oh no. And the thought would come, a judgment would come, and I'd say, out of here. I don't want to deal with you anymore. And I became more and more able to take charge of the mind, the conscious mind. I was able to take charge of it, but it took effort. So I'm saying to you, this is not a roll in the hay. You have to be courageous. Because you're moving out of humanhood. You are moving. If I told the squirrel, you're going to be a human someday, and all you have to do is, well, what would I say to a squirrel? He'd turn to me and say, please, where are the nuts? I don't care about being human. I want a nut. Humanhood is just like being a squirrel. When I realized that that's all it was, being human, it was just a step into God consciousness. And I had to let go of my humanhood to become in the next space of beingness. The fourth dimension, fifth dimension, sixth dimension, seventh. There's many dimensions. It's exciting. And this is the hardest dimension. The third dimension is the hardest. Because you have to let go of all the ideas you have about yourself. None of that applies. You have to let go and let go. And take yourself up the 7 steps tonight and say, I want my consciousness changed. I want to know God. I want to know myself in God. And I am committed. It takes a commitment. But what else do you have to do? But what else? Oh my God, you're going to have problems if you don't do it, and problems if you do it. But you'll be looking at them in a different way, entirely. And that's the part I liked. I got to look at myself. I didn't like it very well, but I had the power to change it. You see, I had the power. And you have the power. I empower you. I empower the God in you to come forth and be. Because that's what it takes. And you have the strength and the power to do that which is yours to do. Because God is in you. And if I'm any representative of God beingness, I am magnetizing that from you. I am pulling that energy in and putting it on you to move tonight to a new state of beingness. There is a plan for your life that's not this plan. It's bigger. It's bigger. And you're going to love it and hate it, but you're going to go. You're going to go. I don't know what else to say.
Well, what she's doing, just to give you a little clue, is she is generating the power, the magnetic power of desire, which is, if we're going to grow, if we're going to go through anything in our consciousness, in our life, we have to generate desire. Desire is what makes the whole universe operate. And rather than being involved in all the petty and trivial desires, you know, you came into Science of Mind because you thought you were going to get a house with a boat on a lake and have a wonderful relationship with somebody great and then a nice 401k. And all that was great. And now you find out what the real work is. Let go of the trivial pursuits. Seek first the kingdom, and all the things will be added unto you. You don't have to be afraid of it anymore. You don't have to hold back anymore. And all the things that you really need will be given to you. And not everything you want, but you will get what it is you need. And that desire for the God consciousness is your reason why you incarnated. And this is the lifetime where for the very first time you are equipped. You are equipped to move into that consciousness, and it's the first lifetime where it's available, because the veil has been lifted throughout humanity, and people are, the technology is there, the information is there, the tools are there to make this move. And so what Jane Elizabeth's going to do at the end of this, after we take the offering, is lead you in a generative meditation that will magnetize that energy of desire in such a way that your life will never get back into the old box.
So say goodbye to yourself. I'm not just kidding. Just relax. Relax and let go. There's been so much information. Information just poured out. And I was talking to your soul, the pure essence of your beingness. As we silence our mind and move into the now moment. There is no past, there is no future, there is only now. And in this moment, there is great energy, a great energy moving in and through this oasis of love and light. It is pure beingness, pure beingness. And we are all in this light together. It's a vibration and energy, pure. And it's drawing us in, drawing us in, drawing us in. It's drawing us to the center of our beingness. The very center of your beingness is being pulled into this vortex of energy. Lifted into this higher dimension, this cosmic universe that is so potent with energy and light and power and strength. It's so potent. It is so potent. It's electric energy. And it's pouring through each and every one of your bodies. Your body temple. You are the living body temple of God. You are the individual expression of the whole universe. Infinite. Beyond. And in this moment, we release all our burdens. We release every idea that we have to the higher power. We ask only one thing: God revelation. Taking each and every one to a new step of their beingness. God is ising in you. Ising and ising. There's nothing separating you from your divine self. That soul that's in the oversoul. We're going to call it God, we want to call it cosmic consciousness. It's all that and more, and far more. We take a moment just to be in the presence. We are made up of electricity. We are, every cell of our body is electrical. It's potent with God energy, God life. And God is taking each one individually and collectively into a higher dimension. We are open to receive. We are open to receive. Another veil has been lifted for each and every one of you. The veil has been lifted for you personally. In the next week, or even tonight, you're going to have a revelation that's going to support the evolution of your soul and support you. It could come in a dream. It could come in somebody speaking to you. But it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And we are blessed tonight to be moved in consciousness. We let the old go and move into our next state of being. The next state of our being. Thank you, God. Cosmic consciousness, the vast universe, the absolute, pouring in and through us. Because there's never been a separation and never will. Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amen, amen, and amen. As we come back to the presence of this room, filled with new energy, new life, and new love. And above all else, a new revelation of who you truly are in God. I love you. You are so beautiful. You are so beautiful. I am so honored to be in your presence. Thank you for inviting me to come and to be in your presence.